right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anthony, for those of you who don't know me, and I just want to echo what Ashley said. If this is your first time with us, welcome. We're super excited to have you with us today as we continue our conversation known as Between Instagrams. And we're looking at, daily we're exposed to the kind of highlights of the lives of those around us. We see vacation photos and birthday photos, the best outfits and the accomplishments and the achievements, the moments that we're encouraged to share, with the hashtag best life or whatever it is. And it leaves us longing for those moments ourselves. And we've been exploring, and we're going to be exploring over the next few weeks, that it's actually not those moments that the hashtag best life is all about, but it's actually the moments between the Instagrams that actually shape us and lead us and tell our stories well. So we explored the truth last week that we live in a world that tells us that we can be or do anything that we want. And if we're not careful, we live in that reality of that we want that, and we pursue and we pursue and we pursue that one thing, and we do everything possible to try to get that one thing. And everything we do revolves around that. In our pursuit of everything in our lives, changing these highlights, these Instagram moments, sometimes without actually thinking, we pursue something that could actually influence our direction. Because sometimes while pursuing this Instagram life, we sometimes lose the opportunity to live this Instagram life. So my Instagram life is not very exciting. I'm pretty predictable. I post pictures of my wife, my daughter, my dog, and my food. And so when you follow me, that's what you will see. I'm also one of those people that follows way more people than follow them. I probably follow triple the amount of people that follow me. So if you want to make me feel better about myself, my handle is AP Reimer. I follow a lot of actors, I follow a lot of athletes, I follow a lot of funny people. I love following people, but I love a good meme. I love funny things, but sometimes if I'm not careful, I can get what's called Instagram envy. You know what I mean? You ever do that? You're scrolling through something on your feed, and then you see this picture of your friend sitting front row at a Billy Joel concert, if you're me, or maybe they're in Paris with burning candles and rolled napkins with napkin rings and an open champagne bottle and a huge centerpiece of fall flowers, and the Eiffel Tower is in the background, and you're like, I hate them. And you think to yourself, it's just so perfect. I want that. I want that life. I have a friend who I hope is listening. I always hope my friends are watching, but I kind of hope she isn't, because she posts all of these travels that she does. And like this last week, she was in Big Sur, and last week she was last month she was taking pictures at New York Fashion Week with the Kardashians, or so I'm told that's who they were. She started her own show, and she takes pictures of her enormous apartment. And it's not, I've been there. It's not an apartment. It's a house in a building. It's gigantic. I went to the bathroom there, and the bathroom is bigger than my apartment. And in she had these disposable towels. These were disposable, that had her initials written in gold on them. And I got so flustered, I didn't know what to do. I'm like, do I throw these away? Do I launder them? So I just put them in my pocket. I didn't know what else to do. But I look at Instagram sometimes, and I feel like it encourages us to create these art directed magazine layouts of our lives. In fact, this past week I read an article. There was an internet marketing manager and blogger out of Toronto who said that she spent 10 minutes with a friend composing a picture of a margarita glass over a plate of tacos. And all I can think about is, if you put margaritas and tacos in front of me, after 10 minutes you'll be composing a picture of an empty plate. So, but it's ridiculous. I mean, we look at other people's lives on Instagram or on Facebook, and we ask these questions, like, why do I have that? Why do they have that? Why do they get that and I don't? Or what's worse is you're ready to snap an Instagram moment, and then you realize you're not going to be able to, because you didn't get the thing that you thought you were going to get. You didn't get the job that you wanted. You didn't get to post that "look who got the new job" post, right? And you get all flustered because you wanted to post the picture of the perfect relationship, or the perfect life, or the perfect job, and that's not what you're posting. That Instagram moment gets taken from you, whether it's a a broken relationship or a failed pursuit or a job that you didn't get approved for the loan, they didn't get better, they didn't beat that addiction. And you look through Instagram and you ask this question: why is this happening to me? You're sitting there with your phone and you want to take that Instagram moment, but you can't. And you're in these moments and you're thinking to yourself, I'm the only one that's clearly dealing with this. They got a job. They got a promotion. They got an award. Why is this happening to me? And if we're not careful, we begin to ask the really tough questions in that moment. What did I do to deserve this? We ask questions like, is God punishing me for something? Is it because I did something or that I know that I shouldn't have done, but I did it anyway? What did I do to make this happen? Maybe you've asked this question: does anyone even care? It feels like I'm going through this on my own. Or maybe you're here today and you've asked this question: if there is a God, why would he let this happen to me? I mean, you told me last week and you told me through the last series that God has a plan for my life. Is this the plan? You tell me every week that God is pursuing me. Is this what he's pursuing me for? One of the toughest things that my wife and I ever went through was our journey of infertility. We thought we would start our family pretty early on. We were chasing that Instagram moment. And we battled pretty early on for a number of years. We fought this thing of infertility, and we had the pain of failed pregnancy test after failed pregnancy test after failed pregnancy test. And finally, we were like, okay, let's go to the doctors, and we did all the tests, and we went through all the things that we were supposed to do, and that went on for months. And finally, we sit across from the doctor, and she says, you have what we call in the business unexplained infertility. And I said, I could have told you that. I'm here for you to explain to me what is wrong. And you're telling me that there is an actual medical term called unexplained infertility. Well, pay me then all the money because I diagnosed that months ago. And we get angry. And we were angry. We were angry at God. We found ourselves being angry at our friends who were so easily getting pregnant. We found my heart ached for my wife, who would sometimes have to pick herself up to go through another baby shower for family or friends. And I remember we were talking to this friend of ours who was pregnant with their third child, and they just kind of said it in passing that we weren't even trying. And we came home and we started to cry because we were just like, God, we just want one. And they have three, and the third one they didn't even plan. And we asked that question a lot. Why, God? And we sat in those moments wondering what God was doing, and truly asked those questions sometimes if we ever would be parents, and we wrestled with it a lot. And as a result, we sometimes question whether God is even with us in those moments, and if he cares. In the series, we were kind of exploring the lives of those who lived in the times the Jewish scriptures were written, more famously known as the Old Testament. And last week we looked at the life of David and how he kind of the things that led up to his Instagram moments weren't exactly the way that he wanted it, nor that he wanted to be planned. And we asked that question, what are you living for? And I think this week, the individual's life who we're exploring is probably asked that question, why is this happening to me, a number of times. And so his account is found in the book of Genesis. If you've never even opened the scriptures before, you literally just go to the front of the book. That's where Genesis is found. His story spans 13 chapters, so I'm going to do my best to summarize it for you. His name is Joseph. You may have heard of Joseph. You may have seen his musical. He had a Technicolor Dreamcoat. But he is a real guy. He was not just played by Donny Osmond. But he has 11 brothers. Joseph, not Donny Osmond, but I don't know. Maybe Donny does. But I don't have any other brothers. I don't have any brothers and sisters. I am an only child, which means I was the favorite. But and listen, I didn't mind being an only child. I just didn't like playing with toys that were made by Hasbro, because I didn't. You'll get that at lunch. You'll like sit down and have brunch, and you'll be like, Hasbro. Oh, because he was an only child. They can all be good, folks. Oh, now you're getting it. Thanks. Welcome, 12:30. You had to sleep in. I've been here since 6:30. But anyway, so he has 10 older brothers. He has one younger brother, and with that can come family drama. Now, what I know, my mom's family has a lot of siblings in them. My aunts and uncles and my grandparents each came from like 7, 8 brothers and sisters. So I know what family drama can look like. I know that you're not supposed to have a favorite, but apparently Joseph's dad did have a favorite, and it was him. Right? Genesis 37:3 introduces this story, and it says, "Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons." Now, we'll get into Israel a little bit later in the series, but Israel is Jacob. Jacob is Israel, because he had been born to him in his old age, and he made an ornate robe for him. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. So it's safe to say that the brothers had some form of Instagram envy, right? They were looking through Joseph's Instagram, and they're like, there's Dad and Joseph again, posting on another father-son fishing trip. He never takes us fishing. Oh, he's wearing that stupid colored jacket again. So they hated him. For lack of a better term, they hated him. And shortly after we get introduced to Joseph, we find that Joseph goes and basically tells his father that his brothers are doing some things that are not so good. And part of you sits there and goes, Joseph, can you just, you got 10 other brothers that don't like you right now. Why wouldn't you just let some of these things pass? Why would you just, why would you go tell your dad on something where you could actually get in your good graces with your brother? But one of the important things to know early on, as we read throughout the Joseph narrative, is the impeccable character of Joseph. That this was so important to him that he couldn't let it slide, that he had to let people know that there was wrongdoings happen. And as we talked about last week, there's nothing that shakes a person of shaky character more than dealing with somebody that has impeccable character. And so that's what's happening in the life of Joseph, is that he's trying to go on his way, he's trying to do what he wants to do, but his brothers are starting to hate him more and more and more. And if that's not enough, Joseph starts to have these dreams, and he starts to tell his brothers about these dreams. Hey guys, I had this dream last night in which the sun, the moon, and the stars bowed down to me. And I'm like, Joseph, don't say that. Your brothers already don't like you. I wouldn't say that. And then he has another dream. Hey guys, I had this other dream in which I'm carrying a bale of hay. You're all carrying bales of hay. And then at one point I put the bale of hay down and all your bales of hay are bowing towards me. And I'm like, Joseph, shut up. You're not making this any better for you. And you know what they thought of his dreams? Well, it says what they thought of his dreams in 37:5. Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. So they made a plan. Got to be too much for them. They said, all right, this is that. It's been brewing for some time. This favorite son, he gets all the things that we don't get. The dreams caused him to hate him all the more. So they decided to take matters in their own hands. They go away. Jacob sends Joseph to go find his brothers. He finds them in a place called Dothan. Comes across them. They see Joseph coming across the ridge, and then they say this in verse 19. Well, here comes the dreamer, they said. Come now, and let's kill him and throw him into one of those cisterns and say that a ferocious animal devoured him, and then we'll see what comes of his dream. So this is escalated. This isn't no longer just family drama. This has gotten to the point where it's gotten so bad that they are willing to kill their own flesh and blood. So when Reuben heard this, Reuben was the oldest, he tried to rescue him from their hands. Let's not take his life, he said. All right, don't shed any blood. Throw him into this cistern here in the wilderness, but don't lay a hand on him. Reuben said this to rescue him from them and take him back to his father. So Reuben's like, listen, I don't want my brother's blood on my hands. You leave him here, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to take him back home. So Joseph came to his brothers. They stripped him of his robe, the ornate robe he was wearing, and they took him and threw him into the cistern. The cistern was empty. There was no water in it. So Joseph's living his life. He's got these dreams. He's got his really cool jacket. Things are going well for him. Then his brothers come. They take his jacket and they throw him into the cistern. Now, a cistern was this large man-made hole right in the ground that was used to collect water. It was a dry climate, so they needed to collect water. Well, this one, as it said, was dry. There was no water in it. So basically, he was thrown into a deep, dark hole. He's probably at the bottom of this hole saying, what did I do to deserve this? All of my brothers have turned on me. And then it only gets worse because his brothers decide, okay, maybe it's not a good idea to kill our brothers. We don't want our brothers' blood on our hands. But we do see some traders, some slave traders that are coming our way. Maybe we can sell Joseph to those slave traders. So they make a deal, they sell him for 20 pieces of silver, and then they take him to Egypt. Now, I did a little research, thanks to Google, and found out that this particular area, Dothan to Egypt, was about 300 miles. So now, not only is he thrown into a pit by his brothers, stripped of his clothes by his brothers, but now he's being sold into slavery, and now he has to walk 300 miles, which, knowing that this day and age, they weren't in a car or anything, it probably would have taken them about 15 to 20 days. He finally gets to Egypt, and he gets sold again. He gets sold again to this guy named Potiphar. Now, Potiphar is the head of the royal guard. Once he gets into Egypt, you're dealing with this guy named Pharaoh. Pharaoh is the king of the Egyptians. He's one of the most powerful rulers during this time. He's almost godlike to these people. He's the head of the church. He's the head of people. He is the big deal, right? And so Potiphar is the captain of the royal guard. So Joseph goes in to Potiphar's household. Now, we're in an interesting point in Joseph's life that most of us find ourselves in these circumstances, and it depends on how we respond to these circumstances, right? Let's just review for those playing at home. We have him thrown into a pit, stripped of his clothes, now sold into slavery, over 300 miles traveling by foot, and now he's a slave once again. How would you respond? But this is what happens. In Genesis 39:4, we see a little bit how Joseph responded. Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. He's talking about Potiphar. Potiphar put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted to his care everything he owned. So here's that character we're talking about. Despite his circumstances, Joseph remains faithful to his character. And as a result, this is what happens. Verse 5. From the time he put him in charge of his household, all that he owned, he put him in charge of his household and all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in the house and in the field. So Potiphar left everything he had in Joseph's care. With Joseph in charge, he did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate. Now Joseph was well built and handsome. Where did that come from? Why do I care about that? I'm glad he looks good with his shirt off. Whatever. But there's an interesting point. This is why it's mentioned. Why was it put in there? Oh, because of verse 7. And after a while, his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, "Come to bed with me." I'm sure Joseph's like, "Whoa, I'm Joseph, and you are?" We don't even get her name. She's just called Potiphar's wife. He's like, listen, she's like, come on, let's Netflix and chill. And he's like, I'm more Hulu and commit. You know what I mean? Like I don't do that. But we see his character again, because think about it. We're at a crossroads here, right? He could make this decision. And think about it. If you put yourself in his shoes, all right? I got beat up by my brothers. I got thrown into a pit. I got sold into slavery. I got brought to Egypt by foot. I walked 300 miles. I get into Potiphar's house. Now I am in charge of everything. right? I am the head of the captain of the guard of the Pharaoh of Egypt's house. Everything's been given to me. And now his wife wants to sleep with me. I got two options here. I can go down that path, and yeah, sure, he probably could get away with it, right? They could probably carry on and not have any things, but that also means there's going to be a life that he's not going to be able to have if he goes down that pit. So he decides to stand true. He stands to stay faithful, and this is how he responds. But he refused. With me in charge, he told her, my master does not concern himself with anything in this house. Everything he owns, he's entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing, excuse me, and sin against God? And though she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her or even be with her. One day, he went into the house to attend to his duties, and none of the servants were inside. So he shows up. I'm going to do my duties, open the door. There's nobody here but Potiphar's wife. She caught him by his cloak and said, come to bed with me. But he left his cloak in her hand and ran out of the house. So he sticks with his guns. He stays faithful. He holds on to his character and runs out of the house. Well, her character's damaged a little bit. Her reputation's damaged a little bit. Her heart's hurt a little bit. So she decides to come up with this plan to get back at Joseph for humiliating her. So when the servants come back in the house and Potiphar comes home, she makes up this story that Joseph tried to come on to her. And she fought and she tried to get him off, and she was able to at least take this cloak that she ripped off of him. And see, this is what happened. Well, Potiphar gets angry. He thinks, oh my goodness, what did Joseph do? Surprised that he doesn't kill him, but he throws him into the prison. And Joseph is probably going, really? Now I'm in prison for something I didn't do? And this is how he responds. Yet again, we see his character. Genesis 39:21 says, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all of those held in prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done there. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success whatever he did. So eventually, Joseph works his way up into favor of now the warden. And while he's in prison and he's enjoying the favor and he's in charge of all the prisoners, there's these two prisoners there that have been thrown in there that happen to find out that work for Pharaoh. And they wake up from having these dreams. They're talking about their dreams, and Joseph's like, you know what? I got a history with dreams. Tell me about your dreams. I'll see if I can help you out. So they each tell him about his dreams. He successfully interpreted both of them, and they get out of prison. And they're like, can we do anything for you? And Joseph's like, just don't forget me. I'm sitting here, and I'm in prison, so don't forget me. So they forget about him, and life goes on. And all of a sudden, Pharaoh starts having these dreams, and he can't figure out what's going on. And so he goes, hey guys, I've got these dreams, and I don't know what it means. And one of the guys is like, there's this guy in prison. His name is Joseph. He helped interpret in my dreams. Maybe he can help interpret your dreams. So he gets him out of prison. They bring him up to him. Pharaoh tells Joseph his story and tells him his dream, and Joseph's like, well, it sounds like there's going to be a pretty bad famine in the land, so you should probably prepare yourself and prepare your people so that you can live throughout the famine. And so the Pharaoh's like, all right, well, let's listen to what Joseph has to say. They store up food, they prepare themselves for this famine, and sure enough, this famine happens, and as a result, Egypt and the surrounding areas are just fine. So Pharaoh is so impressed with Joseph that he literally rises him up in ranks to being second in command. So as a result, Egypt is saved, Canaan is saved, and around the surrounding cities are also saved as well. But that means a lot of the surrounding areas are going to have to come to Egypt in order to get their food, including his family, including his brothers. So his brothers show up to Egypt expecting to go and get their rations and just take it home. But after kind of a fun back and forth, they realize that not only is Joseph alive, but Joseph has risen in the ranks. He is now Pharaoh's number 2 man. And again, you see those crossroads. How is Joseph going to respond? Because if you think about it, this is a perfect time for Joseph to be able to get back at his brothers. I don't know about you if you were in that situation, but these are the guys that beat me, stripped me, sent me away, and sold me. I'd at least demand the 20 pieces of silver they got from me. But he's ready to, he could have done anything. He's second in command to one of the most powerful individuals during this time. He could have had them killed. He could have definitely made them slaves for the rest of his life, whatever he wanted to do. As it says that his brothers, when they realized who it was and they approached him, that they were afraid. And again, we see this crossroads. He could take one road, he could take another road. But he can't live for these Instagram moments if he takes this road and vice versa. And we see, again, his impeccable character carrying through. And his response, after they said they were afraid, was, "But Joseph said to them, 'Don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. So then don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your children.' And he reassured them and spoke kindly to them." I just love that verse. Genesis 50:20 is one of my favorite. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. I think if we're honest, Joseph doesn't really respond the way that many of us would respond. But Joseph had already demonstrated this incredible character, this impeccable character throughout, and this incredible faith throughout his life. He understood something that I don't know a lot of us, maybe a lot of us don't understand. See, we can't determine what happens, but we can determine our response. We can't determine what happens. We can't control the thing that we didn't make happen. We can't control the unfair things when they come our way. We can't control the other person's feelings. We can't control how the other person is going to respond. We can't control the things in our lives that we didn't sign up for. We can't control the things in our lives that we didn't ask for. But Joseph understood something, that even though I can't control these big monumental moments that shook me, I can control how I'm going to respond. And I think if we could understand this, if we could start to get this, then maybe the things that happen to us that don't seem fair, right? The people are getting a promotion. The people are living the life that we think that we should be living, or that we're in the middle of something terrible, a terrible job, a terrible breakup, a terrible circumstance, a terrible family situation, that you may not be able to control the circumstances, but you can control the way you're going to respond. And in that moment, we need to change our perspective. Because maybe what you need right now is not for your situation to change. Maybe what you need right now is not for your problems to go away. Maybe the reason that you're here, or that you're listening on the live stream or listening on the podcast, is that God wants to give you a new perspective to your situation. Maybe he wants you to start seeing it differently. Because see, changing a perspective leads to changing our attitude and our behavior. And if we can see it different, then we can respond different. If we can see the way that God sees it, maybe we can respond the way that God would respond. And if we see these things as challenges, and we don't just see them as challenges, but we see them as opportunities, we realize that we need a new perspective. Or, for the sake of the series Between Instagrams, you need to change the filter. So what filter are you looking at your situation? Are you looking at your life right now? So how do you change the filter? Well, it's actually quite easy. You just open up the app and you click the plus sign. Once you choose the photo you want, you click next. And then there's different filters you can filter through, like normal, Clarendon, gingham, moon, lark, lo-fi. Impressive, huh? Anyway, no, that's not how you change the filter. That's how you change the filter on Instagram. But how do you change the filter in your life? You got to look at the thing that's in front of you, right? You got to look at the thing that's hurting you, the thing that's looming over our heads, the thing that's causing us to cry at night, the thing that's causing us to lose sleep, the thing that causes us to find solace in destructive things, drugs, alcohol, unhealthy relationships, whatever it is. And you got to change the filter of how you're looking at it, because Joseph stopped looking at the things that had been done to him, and he started looking at what God was doing. He stopped looking at all the things that had been done to him, right? Thrown in a well, sold into slavery, falsely accused, sat in jail, wronged, hurt, felt like all of his own. Those are the things that had been done to him, but he realized that God was doing something the whole time. What happened was that God used what had been done to him to save the lives of many. All of those things led up to the fact that Egypt, Canaan, and the surrounding cities were able to survive because of the circumstances that he found himself in. What if we stopped looking at the things that had been done and started looking at what God is doing? What if we stopped looking at the hurt, the pain, the jealousy, and started looking at what God was doing through it? What if this moment we drew a line in the sand, we slammed our staff down like Gandalf, you shall not pass. We stopped asking, why is this happening to me? And we started asking these three questions. Number one, what can I learn from this? Number two, how can I grow from this? And who can I help because of this? This is something I tell the care team all the time. We talk about it in care team training. We talk about it all the time, is that you're never going to be able to know how you're going to be able to help someone go through something that you've been through. In fact, my wife and I saw so many other couples around us that were struggling with infertility and going through miscarriages, and the prayer requests that were coming in from our church family that they were struggling with infertility and they were struggling with miscarriage, that we just felt like God was calling us to do something. And there's nothing that exists out there that's like that. And so next year we're going to be launching something that's called Shiloh, which is specifically for men and women who are either going through or have gone through infertility and miscarriage, to be able to go and have a place to talk and to be with one another and to support with one another. And if you'd like to learn more about that, just send me an email. I'd love to tell you more about it, because what someone is going through, or what you're going through, or what you have gone through, God is with you. I mean, that's what he's saying. That's what we learn throughout the entire narrative of Joseph, throughout the entire 13 chapters. There is one thing that reigns throughout, that keeps saying this little phrase, but the Lord was with him. But the Lord was with him. Because truth be told, guys, there are some people that are scrolling through your Instagrams and they're going, man, why can't I have what they have? But maybe, just maybe, God is bringing you through something, or has brought you through something, or is taking you through something because he wants you to walk with someone through it. God could be saying to that thing, listen, that thing that you're going through, if you could just see what I'm doing. Because we need to ask questions like this. How can I grow from this? How can I become more and more like the person that God wants me to be? Because ultimately, that's our goal, right? If we've walked into this relationship with Jesus, our goal is to become more and more like Jesus. And how do I become more and more like him in this situation? And I don't think it's a mistake that we look at the life of Joseph and we see this impeccable character grown out, because it's impossible to ignore the parallels between the life of Joseph and the life of Jesus. Look at it. He's his father's favorite son. He's envied and hated without cause. He's rejected and condemned to die. He's stripped of his clothing. He's sold for silver. He became a servant. He resisted temptation. He's falsely accused, and he's ultimately responsible for saving the lives of many. It's an incredible parallel, and it's something that I think should give us hope if we're walking in through something. If you've come in here today, you've come in here in this morning and you feel like it's just too big, that you would take your eyes off of the magnitude of it and shift your eyes over to see that this is something that Jesus wants to walk with you through, and that he's provided you with a group of people, his body, the church, to walk with you through it. Or maybe there's something in your life that you think of right now that there is no way that God could ever use this to redeem it or to use it in somebody else's life. And God's telling you right now, he's like, you know what? I cannot wait to use that in the life of someone else. I mean, it's almost as if something is trying to use these circumstances that are trying to distract us from the love that God has from us. But we can't let it have that power, and we can't let it lead us to destruction. Because when we turn our eyes from our circumstances, we can begin to see how much God loves us despite the circumstances we find ourselves in. And we can begin to see how much God loves those around us, and we can begin to see how God is not leaving us alone in our pain and grief, but he's actually using that. And then that verse in Genesis 50:20 just rang so true. What you intended for evil, God intended for good. I sent my wife an email when I was prepping this message. She was in another building. I don't just send my wife emails. I said, what song are you guys doing after what did you plan for after the message? And she told me, and it's so perfect. It's the song that talks about trusting God despite the circumstances. And my hope is that what you're ever going through right now, or what you're wrestling through, or what you think that God might not be able to redeem, that you will listen and respond through the words of these songs. I mean, one of my favorite lines is, when it's more than I can handle and I cannot see the end, I will trust. And I think there's just this perfect parallel in the life of Joseph, that he didn't see the end. In fact, most of us would find ourselves in those circumstances and at any time would have given up. At any time would have questioned God. At any time would have washed our hands and said, this is too much for me. But because he remained faithful, because he changed his perspective, he changed his filter on it, and he said, okay, what if I'm looking through this through the lens of God? That God must be working and must be doing something. We just need to change the filter. So what are you going to trust? Are you going to trust your circumstances? Or are you going to trust him in those circumstances? And sometimes you just have to change the filter. Look through the situation through God's eyes and see how he wants you to respond. Will you pray with me? Father, I want to thank you for the life of Joseph. I want to thank you for sharing the life of Joseph. What an incredible testament to you working. Father, there's so much we can take away, and I hope I did an adequate job of being able to summarize the life of him. But I want people to realize a couple of things. Number one, that you're with us. That if there's those that are here today that don't know who you are, I want to invite them into a relationship with you. That they can trust you. That you are pursuing them. That you did send Jesus for them. Father, my other prayer is that those of us who are here today that might be struggling about something that we're going through, that you'll give them the courage and the strength to reach out. That you created the body to be your body, to be your hands and feet, so allow us to love them well. And last but not least, my prayers for those that are here today that may have gone through something, that are holding on to it. They're saying, I'm never going to share that. I'm never going to talk about that, because there's no way that God can use it. And my prayer is that you will step into their life to let them know that there is nothing that you haven't redeemed in their story, and that you cannot wait to use that to bring more people back to you. None of this is possible without Jesus, Father. It's in his name we pray. It's in his name we hope, and it's in his name that we lay all of this at your feet.